Well, I'm Nariman Laattoe, and I'm the head of RPL and CAT at Cornerstone Institute. It is a passion for me because I myself came through the ranks to my master's via RPL. So, apart from that, my academic background's in adult education. So RPL is really located in adult education. And besides my own story, I also participated and convened RPL programs at UCT in the Department of Adult Education. And for me, because I kind of locate myself quite firmly in social justice, so I wouldn't call myself an educationalist or environmentalist or a health activist. I'm more of a generalist because my thing is about social justice across different sectors. So you can see transformation happening right in front of your eyes. When you put people through a process, even if they don't get into the program they've applied for, like people have said to us, even if I don't get in, this process has already done so much for me. But even when they do, even before they've started the program, even before they've come onto the higher certificate or whatever they are RPLing into, even before they've started that, even before they've graduated from that, just the mere fact that someone who thought, I'd never have access to higher education, I'd never go to university, that wasn't in the plan for me. To see people actually accessing that, or even just recognizing that there's a possibility of that, is already transformative. So obviously, lots of people have not had access to higher education. Hardworking, brilliant people with aspirations, people with dreams, because of our context. So it was about money, so it's about poverty, but it's not only that, it's the social ills. So even when people are from seemingly more privileged backgrounds, there's that issue of self-esteem. So I want to be like everyone else. I also want to, my parents must also be able to buy me clothes. And so it's easier to fall ill to the social pressures and the peer pressures. And so people also go off track. So there are various reasons why people haven't accessed higher education. But in South Africa, the main reason why RPL has been established is about redress. It's because people have, for example, the artisans building our houses, building our roads, building our hospitals, have been doing that work for years without recognition of the fact that they are actually experts in that. In the development sector, people get involved in projects on the ground. People work in NGOs, people volunteer, and that's how they often get positions. In the corporate sector, people may have gotten a job as a receptionist or a clerk and worked their way up in the organization. So they may be in quite a good position, but when jobs come out, we ask for someone with a degree. So someone with a degree gets the job, but I've been here now for like 12 years. I know everything about the organization. So I have to train that person who's coming with a degree. I have to train the person, and the person is my boss. So RPL, if you don't have a matric in that scenario, for example, you could come to us and we would put you through our short course where you develop your portfolio, speak about your learning journey that showcases your experience and your knowledge in that field. So what we would do then, we'll give you a small assessment. So the assessment is really to look at, because RPL is not about setting people up for failure. Absolutely. So I wouldn't put someone into a degree, for example, if they weren't able to cope with the academic rigor of a degree. So through that assessment, we may say, absolutely, you are competent on an academic level to go into a degree. Or we may say, you need a little bit of help with academic reading and writing. We suggest that you start with a higher certificate. So the higher certificate will prepare you for going into a degree. So you can go from the higher certificate into a degree with some credits because they're overlapping modules. So if you don't have matric or the required qualifications, you can get access in that way. If you have matric and get into the program, you don't have a degree. So what happens in that case is, so there's also RPL for exemption. So you would say, for example, if the course was leadership and management, you'll say, actually I've been in a position where I've led a team for so many years. I've had to look at the objectives. I've had to align that to the outcomes that the company wants. I've had to motivate my team. I've had to set objectives with them. I've coached people individually. So what we would say in that case is, again, they would write that up in a portfolio. So they would challenge that module for exemption. So they wouldn't do the entire course. They wouldn't do all of the assessments. They would write up what their experience is in relation to the course outcomes, and they would get an assessment which would help them to reflect on their knowledge and experience whilst matching the outcomes of the program. So in that case, they would be exempted through RPL from doing that module. So the thing about RPL is, I like to call it excavating your skills and knowledge and affirming knowledge and even making it visible to yourself. So an example would be someone working in a community on the ground. Maybe not a big established NGO, and we've had many of those in the higher certificate at UCT, the higher certificate in adult education. So people work in communities, they work in community-based organizations on the ground. They don't have formal knowledge and qualifications. But if you're running a soup kitchen, for example, a soup kitchen, there's planning going into that. You have to look for sponsors. You have to look for where are you getting the ingredients from. You're not working on your own. You're working with a group of people. Everyone needs to know what they need to do because you don't have days to prepare a pot of soup. So everyone needs to know what they need to do. You need to know that those ingredients are coming on the day. There's a lot of planning going into that. It's project planning. If I facilitate a process where someone writes that up, that's a good example of where you can see how that transforms someone's thinking about him or herself. Because it's for them, it's like, I really just did what was needed in my community, or it's just a soup kitchen. It's just a soup kitchen. But you are contributing to food security in a community. There are very different levels on which you're contributing that you may not even understand. So when one facilitates a process where you excavate that knowledge, that skill, that competency, and people see that written, often the response is, oh my God, is this me? So you can see why I love RPL. So RPL for access would be particularly related to people who don't have the specific entry requirements, most notably matric. So that would be RPL for access, and a process would be put in place to see what are your skills, what are your knowledge, what is your competency, and where would we place you. So we may place you in the highest certificate, we will assess that portfolio and your writing. So the different NQF levels, so matric is NQF level 4. A first year at university is NQF level 5. A higher certificate is NQF level 5. Higher certificates are more skills-based, while degrees focus more on developing critical thinking, how you develop your argument, for example. So a higher certificate would have a mix of the two, because you are also preparing people to go into a degree process, even though it's also on level 5. So you exit a degree at level 7. So each level has level descriptors. So it's not only about your knowledge and experience. So the level 4 in matric, so you'll see that people will graduate with a higher certificate or diploma pass or a bachelor's degree. That's related to the courses that you take, or the subjects as they call it in school, but it's also related to the marks you get. So that would determine initially for young people where they are placed in higher education. So for us, there's also age exemption. So when you're 23, if you didn't get a bachelor's pass, you can come to university. There are some rules around that. But you can, from the age of 23, enter university without a bachelor's pass. So that's another form that I think a lot of people don't know about. So the level descriptors, at each level, it would say at level 5, you're supposed to be able to do this. Identify different concepts, understand concepts. At another level, you'd have to be able to apply those concepts. So the assessment of where someone is placed is also related to those level descriptors, which is why I'm saying it's not about setting people up for failure, and we do have to look very carefully at where we place people, because it's also about building their confidence to go on to from a higher certificate to a degree. So the level descriptors are important, and sometimes we use the same readings or journal articles or books in different years, but the assessments are more complicated. So the assessment will reflect the level descriptors, what you're supposed to do at each level. So that's part of what we would look at in terms of assessing where someone would be placed. Then RPL for exemption would be the example I gave earlier, where someone's already in a degree, they've been accepted, but they have in a particular or in relation to a particular module, they have that skills and knowledge. So they would RPL, exactly. Then RPL for promotion is also the example I gave, where someone's working in an organization. They are not yet in university. They may not even be thinking about coming to university, but they will also put together a portfolio, and they'll write up their knowledge and skills against perhaps a job description.
Understood.
Yeah.
That qualifies them
Exactly.
for the available opportunities.
Exactly. So either they'll write up all of their experiences and be able to say, this is the level I'm at, or if there were a job coming out or a job advertised, they would write up their knowledge and experience against what is required of that job. Yeah.
Understood.
So we had, I convened at UCT. I used to teach in community and health sciences at UWC. And then I convened a special higher certificate program that was for a group of women working in the health sector. So I'd been teaching in the department for a long time. And then they asked me to convene this program because I was able to adjusted to the health sector.
Sure.
One of the ladies on that program was already 60. And she struggled with the academic reading and writing. We had tutors as well. She'd spoken often in her story about her struggles to gain higher education. She'd been involved in the struggle, and that had been a challenge for her and a barrier to access education. She was really hardworking on the ground in her community. The day she graduated, I don't think there was a dry eye in what was still then the Jammy Hall. She walked up to get her certificate, her higher certificate, and everyone stood up for her. Everyone. It was the most emotional graduation of a person. If we look at RPL, we've been talking about RPL in the higher education sector. There's also RPL for promotion. And for me, that is where leadership needs to understand that. Because leadership sets the tone for an organization. Leadership needs to understand recognition of prior learning, and they need to say, we are buying into this. Because if I'm training you, I don't have a degree, you are a graduate, but I need to train you to become my boss. What does that say about how the organization values what I bring to the organization? And why can I not have the job that I'm training you for? The benefit is actually mutual. The benefit is not only to that staff member who gets a promotion. The benefit is mutual, because instead of the graduate going through a period of learning about the organization, learning about policies and processes, learning about the culture of the organization, and someone can perform incredibly well in an interview, but when they come into the organization, they may not fit into the culture of that organization. And a new person brings a lot of dynamics that can rock the boat. So if I'm that person who's been there for 10 or 12 years, and I've been doing the job, if I have to train you, obviously I know the work. So if I had that job, it would be a seamless entry, a seamless transition, because I'd be able to run with it immediately. I don't need to learn the organization. I don't need to navigate the culture of the organization. I already have that. That's what I bring. And if you considered paying my fees or paying part of my fees if I wanted to go and study, it would still cost you less than employing a graduate. So the benefit is mutual. The benefit is not only for the staff member. That person can expect to be held in a space. I do want to say that it's really important to hold a space for someone coming into RPL, because particularly if you don't have matric, it doesn't matter how highly qualified you are in terms of how far you've gotten in your job or what position you hold. You always feel like you're not enough. And the people around you with degrees, it may not be a spoken thing. And even if people don't think so, that's how you think of yourself. I'm not enough. So it's also, if people have to write out their learning history, you are in a sense bearing your soul to someone. I have to read that. People speak about their learning journey. A lot of what they learn is through adversity. A lot of what they learn is through their circumstances in life. A lot of people, circumstances have, through that, they've been involved in substance abuse or other things, and that in itself is a huge learning. So they don't leave that out. If they left that out, they'd leave out a huge part of their learning. So you are, in a sense, opening yourself up to someone to read that and to know you, someone that you're in a process with. So you need to be able to hold a space for people. You need absolutely to be non-judgmental. So for me, every person I work with, I'm in a process with. And what I do also is I walk that application through. So I don't just do the short course with you and you apply and you're then on your own, although the application will come to me for approval, but I don't wait for that approval. I walk the process through. The portfolio goes to the HOD with my recommendation. I inform the admission staff so they know when they receive it. So the person doesn't get declined, because what sometimes people will get declined, we pick up all those that are declined and we look through them and assess them. But you can imagine what it will feel like to immediately get a letter that says application declined. So that doesn't happen because everyone in the process is informed. So I literally walk it through. So even after they have been accepted, I also offer academic coaching. So I know what it's like also for adults who have 100 things to juggle: work, children, elderly parents. You have multiple roles and responsibilities, and you're adding another one. And you're anxious because you want to do well. You know, it's not like an 18-year-old going into university and, oh, I don't feel like working today, and a pass is a pass. You really want to do well, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself. So I will have conversations where I look at how are you structuring your time to do your work, and how are you coping. And so I also ensure that people know that they can contact me at any time, even if they're just feeling a little overwhelmed or they feel that they're struggling with an assignment. So I'll just talk to them. I'll tell them it's okay. So they do. I walk the process at Cornerstone. I walk the process through. It's not the end of my process with someone. It never will be. We've already built up a relationship, and a relationship of trust. So they also know, I make really sure that they know, now that you are in, you can still contact me. So for example, if people struggle with registration or re-registration for returning students, they'll call me, because it is difficult. They don't know individual people in the university. So they'll contact me and then I will sort it out.